Makarand R Paranjape. This is a pillow book. Hold it gently and it will speak to you in dulcet tones. It will whisper songs of love, a love sublime and sweet that will make your mind serene. It will be like drops of rain on a tired face or the touch of your beloved on a moonlit night. Treasure it. Read it silently, share it with someone you love, for in it is the voice of Krishna, sensual love. Keep it by your pillow. It will be like a gentle aromatic waft which will take you from one day to the next. Harsha V Dehejia is a practicing physician and professor of Indian studies at the College of Humanities, Carleton University, Ottawa, Canada. He has over 30 books, 3 films, and many curated exhibitions to his credit. Dehejia was the winner of the 2003 Raja Rao Award for Literature for outstanding contributions to the literature and culture of the South Asian Diaspora. Makarand R Paranjape has been a professor of English at JNU, New Delhi. He served as director of the Indian Institute of Advanced Study, Shimla, and is the author and editor of over 50 books, 180 academic papers, and thousands of articles. Paranjape is currently a columnist in Open Magazine, Gulf News, The New Indian Express, and Firstpost. We welcome you. And I would now request you to please unveil the cover. Once again, first edition presents 100 love songs of Krishna. Thank you and congratulations for unveiling the cover. Over to you.
Thank you so much. First of all, Harsh bhai, congratulations on this beautiful pillow book, as you call it. I'll ask you a question about that in a moment, but for the audience who does not know Dr. Harsh Dehejia, I can say without hesitation that he is the world's foremost exponent and expert on the Krishna arts. All aspects of Krishna as are depicted in poetry, painting, literature, pitchwise, and other, aesthetic practices which come under the overall rubric of Saundarya or beauty. So the first question I want to ask you, Harsh bhai, I mean, this is a lovely book, of course, and congratulations once more. I'm struck by the title, 100 Love Songs of Krishna, and I hope it becomes a book to remember and read and cherish. And the 100 songs will be like, the Nirvana Shatakam, the Shringara Shatakam, and the Niti Shatakam, these are celebrated books in Sanskrit literature. So I hope this book takes its place there. And what I want to tell the audience is these 100 love songs, many of them have been written by Professor Harsh Dehejia himself. So he comes in his avatar as a poet, as a scholar of Krishna, as a translator, and as somebody who has curated these paintings, which he commissioned himself, some of them. So first question is, how did you come to do this book?
Thank you, Makarand. You're a friend, so I'm going to discount much of what you've said about me. I am possessed by Krishna and Krishna possesses me. So I write what he wants me to write. And maybe he felt that the time has come for me at my age to have a pillow where I sit, where I walk, where I do my work. And if I have a pillow, why not a pillow book? But more seriously, after writing so many weighty books on Krishna, I thought the time had come to promote Krishna as a part of the pillow book genre. Kama Sutra is one of the well-known pillow books. But Krishna is equally sensuous. And not only that, Krishna's sensuality is a doorway to spirituality. So if you read Krishna poetry, either by famous authors or even in this book, I have no doubt that you will be touched by not only Shringar, but Shringar Bhakti as well.
That's wonderful. I'm going to ask you to read some poems that you have composed, but that'll come later. But my second question has to do, you see, I wore this mask in your honor with the Canadian maple leaf. Now, you spend most of your professional life in Canada. You and Dr. Mrs. Sudha Dehejia, very well-known medical practitioners in Ottawa. And you've done so much for this Indo-Canadian or Indo-American, North American friendship. But has Krishna anything to do with the fact that you were so far from India that somehow all your work is connected with India and Krishna? How did you arrive at this?
Well, it's a very good question, but I don't have an answer. Something stirs. It's a bit of a mystery how you come upon a subject or a person, how that person beckons you. It's like a bulava. A bulava doesn't have a good answer. But somewhere at the back of the mind, I'm sure my love for Krishna, my love for India. And I will say this much, that I've been thinking a lot in the last few days, that in my 83 years of life, have I discovered Satya? I have tasted success in many different ways, but have I tasted or understood Satya? And the answer to that self-posed question is, for me, Satya is Shringar. Shringar is the animating principle of life, of human beings, of nature, and so on. And Shringar, if properly understood, leads to Shringar Bhakti and leads to Gnana and so on. So my mission, as it were, in life is to show the Shringaric Krishna as a source of knowledge, not just sensual titillation and enjoyment.
Totally. I think that's very well put. I'm going to ask you a question about that in a moment. But, Keats also said, truth is beauty and beauty truth. That is all you need to know on earth. That is all you know and all you need to know on earth. So I think this connection between, and then Satyam Shivam Sundaram, that which is true is also beautiful. It's also auspicious. So this is certainly something that we've believed for millennia in this country. But I think Krishna is very special when it comes to the arts, right? Because thousands of people have been inspired by Krishna to write poems. There's Surdas, there's Meera, and there's Ras Khan. There are people from all faiths, all traditions. And then the Pichwais, the beautiful art of Nathadwara, the Krishna paintings, the Krishna Shringara. The worship is so beautiful. The decorations are so beautiful. And there's the great poem by Vallabhacharya, Akhilam Madhuram. I mean, everything about, Madhuradhipate Akhilam Madhuram. Everything about Krishna
is Madhura, and to which I add Krishna Swayam Kavyam. That is a book that I wrote some time back, that Krishna himself is poetry. Krishna is the Kavi and the Kavya, is the Rasa and the Rasika.
But that's the thing I want you to elaborate on. How is this beauty and this tremendous, should I say, you rightly said, it's not the titillation of the senses, but the celebration, because food, cuisine is also linked with Krishna. Braj is famous for food, it's famous for Holi, for frolic, fun and frolic, everything. Now, how is this also, an epistemology? How does it contribute to knowledge? Maybe you can tell us by, explaining what the flute of Krishna means.
Actually, in the introduction to the book, I have written a small 2-line introduction or forward, and I have said that, O Kana, if I forget who I really am, please come then and play your flute. See, the flute of Krishna takes you from Vismarana to Smarana. See, that's one of the fundamental processes of epistemology. You forget the knowledge that you already possess. All that Krishna does by playing the flute through his leelas and kridas, he unlocks the Madhur Dhara in your Atman. And then you begin to know who you really are. So the movement from Vismarana to Smarana, and we've talked about this when it comes to Shakuntala and so on. So it's a very common trope, a common a way of knowledge, and that is what Krishna does. Krishna does not impart any new knowledge. Knowledge is already there, but which you have forgotten in your sansaric life. And the two ideas, the two main epistemological knowledge ideas of Krishna, of the Bhagavad, mind you, is Madhur or Madhurya. And the second is the Rasa Leela. It is in the Rasa Leela, on the Maharas, that Krishna converts sensuality into spirituality. He converts the Sakar, the Krishna of form, into the Nirakar, the Krishna without form. And that is how sensuality goes to spirituality.
Oh, absolutely. But that's very fascinating, because when we think about Krishna's flute and the ras, then the normal understanding is, oh, it's a very disruptive and you might say even hypnotizing, mesmerizing kind of call. He calls you, and then the gopis forget all their duties. They steal out at night. Their husbands are sleeping. They go into the forest clearing. And then there's that marvelous, magical dance, the Rasa Leela. So on the one hand, it's Madhurya Bhakti, Madhur, very sweet. But at the same time, it's very radical. It's very disruptive at one level. Wouldn't you say that? To know yourself.
Is meant to be disruptive, as you said in your session earlier, that it shakes you out of your banality, shakes you out of your ordinary day-to-day life, as it were, and makes you realize the Nirakar Brahman. Because after all, don't forget, the Bhagavad Puran is an Advaitic text, except that we call it Shuddha Advaita, not Advaita Vedanta, not Vishishta Advaita, not the Advaita of Kashmir Shaivism, but it is the Advaita that comes from Dvaita and becomes Advaita. It's a very special Advaita.
So let me take you back to the original idea of a pillow book, right? And you said that sensuality leads to spirituality. But normally in the world, we don't look at it like that. So would you say that only sensuality directed at Krishna?
Absolutely.
Not any other kind of, because even when we read Rupa Goswami, Jiva Goswami, there are very radical poems where I think one of the it's Sanskrit, it's not a poem, it's a treatise. And then the treatise says, always contemplate the glory and majesty of Sri Radha Rani's breasts. And you wonder, and if you look at the devotees, the Krishna devotees, the ISKCON, they are the most puritanical people I know. By puritanical, I mean the ritual observances are so strict. So normally we think that sensuality and spirituality are opposed. But how come Krishna makes all the difference?
In Krishna's body itself are all the markers of a spiritual person or the movement. His pitambar, the Ghanashyam color, the Vanamala, the peacock feather, and above all the flute. All these are markers of spirituality, but through sensuality.
And that can you explain that? Because we often find, especially in Advaita, with due respect to Vedantists, their approach is very dry and it's very logical, of course, but it's somehow quite abstruse and off-putting to ordinary people, you know?
Well, if I were to say with some difficulty and asking people to respect what I'm saying, Shankara has done more damage to the Indian mind than anybody else.
Yeah. But how about Saundarya Lahiri? Let's not be so harsh on Shankara. How about Shivananda Lahiri, you know?
Yes, and that is the paradox of Shankara. But Shankara, in positing Maya, yes, or the whole concept of illusion, has driven us into kind of a negative approach towards life. Instead of life affirming sensuality of Krishna, Shankara would do just the opposite.
So let's come back to that life-affirming sensuality for a moment. And then I'll ask you to, maybe I'll request you to read a couple of the poems, and then we can take some questions from the audience. You know, when we read the Geet Govind, it is so sensual, and there is no guilt, there is no shame, and it's both human and divine at the same time. But in the Western tradition, at least, we've always been taught to distinguish between carnal love and spiritual love, right? And eros and agape. Would you say that that distinction doesn't hold in India at all?
Absolutely not.
So would you say that in the Indian tradition, all love is sacred? There's no, or
all love is sacred. Everything is sacred. Life is sacred. My taking a bath in the morning is sacred. My eating my food is sacred. But the sensuality of Krishna, understood through, as the Bhagavad Puran says, through my songs and stories. Because at the time of the Bhagavad, there were no paintings, no miniature paintings and so on. And therefore, Krishna, quote unquote, says, if you want to know me, if you want to celebrate me, venerate me, do through my songs and stories, not through rites and rituals.
true, but coming back, you see, isn't there legitimate desire and illegitimate desire, legitimate love and illegitimate love? And look at what Mahatma Gandhi has done, you know. And I wrote, you know that because I wrote it for you. I did a paper on Radha, and in that paper, Radha is telling Gandhiji that, listen, there's nothing wrong with sensual love. Why have you become such a Puritan? So,
you see, but Makarand, the difficulty arises when you make Krishna and the gopis, Krishna and the Radha as historical figures. If once you take them as historical figures, you're muddying the waters, because then all kinds of questions will be asked. Who is Radha and who is Krishna? Was Radha married? Was Radha older than Krishna? And so on. These are absolutely meaningless questions. We must leave Krishna as a mythic, poetic person and derive inspiration and knowledge from that. We don't need to copy Krishna and marry 108 gopis or whatever. The Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Puran rather, is hugely and robustly metaphorical.
but if you read Geet Govind, it doesn't seem to be hugely and robustly metaphorical. The pining, the touching, the entire celebration of love in all its aspects, Shringara Rasa. But I think this is a longer conversation. I've got a signal from the organizers. What we'll do instead is we'd love to hear some of your own compositions. I've seen you in your many avatars, but now you're also emerging as a poet. You're a storyteller, you're a philosopher. Of course, you've written a novel also, very unusual, but now you've become a poet thanks to Krishna. So please.
Well, I hesitate to call myself a poet. I stand on the shoulders of the poets of Bhagavad Puran and Geet Govind and Narsi Mehta and Vidyapati and the poets of Orissa and Ras Khan and Keshav Das and Surdas. So I'm a mere drop in the water in the river of Yamuna. But little did I know that when, this is page 197, little did I know that when I play the flute, it is he who fills it with melody. I had not known that whatever song I play, it is he who writes its lyrics. I did not realize that whatever rhythms I create, they are those of the Yamuna. O Kana, you are in my very being. Try something else.
Yes.
Page 219. Take me to Krishna, Radha asks her Sakhi. To go to Krishna, the Sakhi says, you must know what is Rang, for Krishna revels in colors. You must know a raga, for Krishna plays the flute. You must know the bhashas, for Krishna responds to sweet words. You must know Nritya, for Krishna loves rasa. You must know Rachana, for Krishna cherishes adornment. So only if you have Rang and Ras and Rachna and Nritya and Bhasha, you can become Krishnamay. Then Radha tells the Sakhi, take me to Krishna, even if I do not have all of the virtues that you speak of. For when I see Krishna with my eyes of love, Krishna will fill me with what is missing in me.
Thank you. That is so beautiful. The invitation to become Krishna Maya, not Maya, but Maya, that is completely imbued and infused and enthused with the spirit of Krishna. So let's take a...
Can I just read one last one?
Please, please.
Yes. Come, let us make a quilt together. I will be the needle, you the suit, page 173. Come, let us make a quilt together. I will be the needle and you the sutra. I the warp, you the weft. I will weave your dreams, you my wishes. I will capture your smile, you my laughter. I will stitch the many colors of your ornaments, you my aromatic thoughts. I will stitch many romantic moments, you of a time in a secret garden. I will bring your old saris, you orodnis, and we will sew them together and keep alive the many memories. I will bring the dance of your hands to the fabric. You will create the many textures of my love. You know who will be the sutradhar? The person who plays the flute. This quilt will be our offering to him.
Thank you so much. Give a big hand to Dr. Harsha V Dehejia. And I'll take a few questions. But before, put your hands up for the question. But I also want to ask you very quickly, how did you put these illustrations together?
Well, they're from our family collection of Krishna art, which Sudha and I have put together. And many of them sometimes led to the poem, sometimes the poem led to the particular piece of art and so on.
So Saundarya, you see, once again, if you visit their home, it's one of the most beautiful homes that I have ever visited. Very lovingly curated with artifacts and paintings and miniatures from all over. But we can have a couple of quick questions, please. And then there'll be a book signing at the back.
Thank you, namaste, and good afternoon. Lovely to hear about these poems. I have a question, and I would like you to not take it otherwise, please, both of you. We speak so well about knowing Advait, Vedant, Bhagavad, Puran, all these words. Yet, please, why do we keep saying Krishna, Raga? Why not say it as Krishna, Rag? Taking from your earlier panel, Makarand ji, sound is mantra, pronunciation rightly. So also,
Thank you.
Just a simple question.
Thank you. I will answer it later. I will give you a very satisfactory answer. Okay, later.
So will I.
So, okay, but we'll take, okay, A.J. Thomas, please, from the front row. He's himself a well-known poet and was the editor of the Sahitya Academy Journal. Go ahead, A.J.
Yeah, this is just to request the doctor to elaborate on the Madhurashtakam, if possible.
The Madhurashtakam, I think, is a fundamental description of Krishna's sensuality. But not only that, when you read the Madhurashtakam, not only everything about Krishna is Madhur, but Krishna, because of Krishna's Sanidhya, the whole Vrindavan becomes Madhur. So the very presence of Krishna makes everything Madhur. Those of us who are not privileged to be living in Vrindavan in Krishna's time, for us, being surrounded by Krishna objects, whether it is painting or poetry or sculpture or embroidery or whatever, the very presence of Krishna in that is also Madhur. And we find Krishna in that as well.
In fact, I would just like to add a footnote, which is that whenever we think or talk about Krishna, we create the Vrindavan, the front lawn, momentarily becomes our own inner Vrindavan. So on that note, I think we are practically out of time. Any one last question, please?
We didn't answer her question.
Which one? Yeah, we will answer that. But simply speaking, there's no standard pronunciation in any language. Even the two recensions of the Vedas will be different, South Indian, North Indian. If you go south, they'll say Rama, Krishna. If you go north, they'll say Ram. They drop it.
See,
So it is colloquial. You see, don't take it that seriously.
no,
Yeah, but when we chant a mantra, we'll try and do it right. But let's not get sidetracked. Let's have one last question from somewhere. Anybody, one last question? Yes, please, go ahead.
Hi, I came in at the point where you were saying, why are we so puritanical when we look at Krishna's blatant enjoyment of life? I think, lust for life describes Krishna. It's not just about sweetness and all the correct, post-Victorian ideas that we impose on our own culture. So I'd love you to elaborate on that.
No, I think the idea of Puritanism doesn't come into the Indian mind at all. We are a very sensual culture, and we are not ashamed of it in any sense of the term. It is only our colonial masters who put that Victorian ideas into us. So I make no apology for sensuality. But the only thing I say is when we talk about Krishna's sensuality, it should not stop at sensuality, but it should move on to spirituality. The Shringar of Krishna invites us to move on from Shringar to Shringar Bhakti. And Shringar Bhakti is very different from the traditional Bhaktis. And therefore, no, I do not believe in any puritanical concepts or ideas of Krishna.
Okay, on that note, on that guilt-free note, we wish you all good afternoon. The author signing tent is at the back. So if you've acquired a copy of the book, please join us there, and Harshbhai will be delighted to sign the book. Thank you so much.
Again. Thank you.